Welcome back to Simright Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to make a homemade pleated palazzo wide leg pant or trouser. As you can see right here, you can see the trouser is actually very bogus and it is pleated. This is a palazzo trouser, as you can see, and it's actually trending. So I'll be teaching you the tips and tricks to achieving this pleated palazzo trouser. As you can see right here, we have some of them that have wider legs, some with moderate leg. So I'll be sharing with you the tips on making it wider or making it moderate as you wish. So here you can see what I got right here. So I actually made mine moderate and I used a crepe fabric for this. So the fabric you can use is silk, polyester, chiffon, crepe. So if you are making use of crepe, I'll advise you to use the lighter crepe. So here I actually used a thicker crepe anyway. So the lighter crepe is better because it's going to hold your pleatings very well. So the fabric you use is very important as far as this pleating is concerned. But here I use a thicker crepe anyway, just for tutorial purpose. After this tutorial, we are going to create a border line on top, 4 inches. On the side, 3 inches. From top to bottom, I'll mark the 3 inches on this side. So right now, I'm going to rule my 4 inches line and then rule the 3 inches line from top to bottom on this side. So the next thing we want to take now is the vertical measurements. So for the vertical measurements, I'm going to place my tape on the waistline. So here is my waistline and my band width is 1.5 inches. So I'll place my tape on the waistline at 1.5 inches and I'm going to mark my crouch line. So my crouch line is your hip divided by 4, add 2 inches to it. So whatever you have will be your crouch line. But I am going to encourage or advise you add 4 inches to your hip divided by 4. That will give you a better crouch free line for this free trouser like this, like the one you see on the video. So here is my crouch line. So my crouch line is 14 inches. So I came up by 2 inches. But if you add 2 more inches to it, it will be better to be at 16 inches if you are using a hip of 48 inches. After marking the hip line, I'm going to take my knee line. So the knee line is actually optional because this is a palazzo trouser and we don't actually need it, but I will mark it. My knee line is at 22 inches. So I marked 22 inches for my knee line. Then I'm going to take the full length of this pant. So I took from the waistline. The full length of this paper is 47, but my actual length is 43 inches. So I use the whole paper at 47 inches as full length. So next we'll go over to the hip line. So I'm going to take my hip circumference right now. My hip circumference divided by 4 is 12 inches. I added 1 inch, which is 13 inches for ease. And I placed that 13 inches on the crouch and on the waistline. So now I'm going to make a straight line from the waist to the crouch line. So for the crouch extension, I'm going to use my hip divided by 20. So my hip divided by 20 gave me 2.4. So but I added 1 inch to that 2.4 to make it freer, which is 3.4. So I marked at 3.4 instead of 2.4. Just add 1 inch and come up diagonally by 1.5 inch. So we are going to connect the point from that 3.4 inches to the 1.5 diagonal line we marked, then to the line at the center front, just to create the crouch curve. So after creating the crouch curve, the next thing we are going to do right now is to take the waist circumference. Okay, so I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. So here I marked it on the waistline. I got 9.5 inches. So I'm going to connect from that waistline to the hip line. So after connecting from the waistline to the hip line, the next thing I'm going to do is to place my tape on the crouch line and get the midpoint of my crouch line. So I'm going to take what I got from that midpoint. I'll mark it on the hip line, mark it on the knee line, and mark it on the hem line. So I'm going to mark the center grain line. So I'm going to use dotted lines to mark the center grain line. So I'm marking with dotted lines because we are going to slash and spread that part to achieve the fullness of this trouser. So here is my grain line. So I'm going to mark what I have on the midpoint on the other side, on the knee line, and connect with my curve to that crouch line. So then I'm going to also take what I have on that knee line, the measurement of what I have from the grain line to that point. I'll mark it on the hem line. So now I'm going to connect from this point. As you can see, you can create and make it an A line at this point. So from that knee line, I connected to the full length. So I just want to make some adjustments to that curve, okay, just to make it fit in very well. So this is my center front right now. So the trouser is ready if you want to make a normal palazzo trouser. So here I'm going to come in by 1 inch and I'll come in by 2 inches to create the line for the back. So I'll place my line and come up by 1.5 inches on top of the waistline just to accommodate the back line. So I'm going to place my tape diagonally and mark my waist circumference divided by 4 on that line. So here is my center back. So the next is my crouch extension. So for my crouch extension, for the back, I'm going to use my hip divided by 10. Here I got 4.8. But I'll add 1 inch to it. Add 1 inch to it, okay? If you really want your trouser to be very, very free, like the ones we are seeing in the video. So I added 1 inch to it. And I also made that diagonal line at that point just to connect the back curve. Okay? So I connected the back curve right now to the crouch line. So now I'm going to place my tape on that hip line on the center back and mark my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch for extension or ease. So I'll just go ahead and connect from that point to the hip, as you can see. So I begin to add 1 inch on the side. On the knee line, I added 1 inch. On the hem line, I added 1 inch as well. So I'm going to connect that 1 inch from that point and connect it back to the hip line. Now I came into the front and added 3/4. So I added 3/4 of an inch from top to bottom like that. So you can add half an inch if you want to. So I'm going to connect from that point to the crouch extension for the back. So after connecting to the crouch extension, the trouser right here is very much ready. So I'm going to cut out from the center back line. So I'll go ahead and cut out on the part I marked on the center back to the crouch extension of the back. So you are going to save this piece. Please save this piece. You are going to see why we have to save this piece. So I'm going to start cutting on the red line, which is the back piece. So I'm cutting on the red line, as you can see. So that is the back piece of this trouser. So the green line is for the front piece and the red line is for the back piece. So I'm done cutting right now. This is my back piece. So I'm going to cut through this center grain line so we'll be able to slash and spread this pattern. So I'm going to cut all the way to the waistline. So at this point, don't cut all, okay? Don't cut through all, because we are going to slash and spread this pattern to achieve the fullness that we actually want. So now you can slash as much as you want. You can slash from 10 inches to 15 inches to achieve that fullness. So here I measured 11 inches. That is what I'm going to slash and spread. So I went ahead to bring in my cardboard paper. I brought 2 pieces of cardboard paper, matched them together, Then I'm going to place my pattern piece on top of it, so we'll be able to slash and spread. So I ruled a line at the edge. If you look very well, you can see I ruled a line, a red line at the edge. That is to place the crouch part of this trouser. So I use my adhesive, because I'm going to stick the pattern on the edge of that paper. So you can see my pattern right here. So before we slash and spread, we are going to keep the crouch part of this trouser. We will keep it steady at that edge. Then we'll now slash the side. So I use my adhesive to be sure I stick everything so it does not move or shift. So I place my adhesive at that point. So on the side right now, I am going to open up the side. So I opened it at 11 inches. So I'll take the measurements at 11 inches and I'm going to use my adhesive to stick on it. Sorry, my camera was actually shaking at this point, but I believe you understand what I'm doing right here. So I stick my adhesive to it, make sure it relaxes nice and flat. So I made sure I slashed it. I slashed at that 11 inches. Like I said, you can do 15, as much as your fabric can contain anyway. So here I will go to the upper piece and relax the upper piece using my adhesive. So I place my adhesive below it to make sure that part relaxes very, very well. So this is the pattern that we are going to use to construct this pleat. So now I'm going to trim off that curved part I curved in. So I'll now go ahead and continue cutting through the curve. As you can see, I cut through the waistline and I went through the side just to get the shape of the trouser. So this is what I got at the end of the day, and now we'll move over to the cutting of this or the pleating of this trouser. So here I make sure I use my adhesive to stick very, very well. So make sure you stick it very, very well. So here my pattern is ready. So this pattern we are going to cut 2 times of it. So I'll be using this pattern to cut 2 times. So I match my my cardboard paper together. I have 4 pieces. I just merged it together. So I'll be able to place that pattern on it and cut. So I placed my pattern on top of it right now. So you place it on top of it and secure with your pin. So I'll secure the pattern on this plain paper right now. Secure them with my pin because I want to cut out exactly the shape of this pant. So I'll move over to the cutting of the shape. So what we are trying to create right now is the pattern. So the pattern we are going to use to form the pleating, that is what I'm creating right here. So I went ahead to take the shape. So this pattern I'm cutting right now is only 1, but I'm going to also place another 4 cardboard paper and cut another 1. Okay, so this main pattern with slash and spread, I'm going to set it aside. We are going to use it for the front. So here is A and B. Okay, but I later cut out A. So now we are going to section the down piece. So I'm sectioning it at 2 inches. I will section them at 2 inches right here. So at 2 inches, I'm going to, the sections I got at the end of the day was 14 sections. So these 14 sections, we are going to go over to the upper piece right now. On the waistline, you just take the measurement of what you got. I got 9.5. I divided it by 14 sections and I got 0.6. So I'll begin to section them, the upper piece at 0.6. So after sectioning it at 0.6, we are also going to get 14 sections for the upper piece. So now I will begin to connect the upper piece section to the down piece section. So the idea is just to get a beautiful pleat that flows from the waist to the hem line. Okay, so here you see me connecting them from the waist to the waistline like that. So I will advise you use a craft paper. At this point, after drafting your trouser, slashing and spreading, I will advise you get a craft paper. A craft paper is more durable, and this craft paper is brown in color. You can get it at a printing shop. So if you want this paper to last as long as you want to make use of it for other projects, make sure you use a craft paper. So this craft paper is brown in color, and you can get it from a printing shop. So what I'm doing right here is best done on a craft paper. So if you are able to get a craft paper, better. But if you cannot get a craft paper, you can just use a cardboard paper. But the point is that the cardboard paper will not last long. After this project, I'm going to throw it away. But if you want to keep this for other projects, a craft paper is better. So right here, I'm almost done sectioning it. But if you look there, you can see that the crouch part is not sectioned. You can see it's bolder. So I now went ahead to take the measurement of what I have on the spacing. I have 1.25. I'm going to mark 1.25 like that to section that part. Then I'm going to follow the lines and mark the crouch part. So wherever it terminates, that is it. On the side, I also marked 1.25 like that. So I'll be able to section the hip part of it. So I marked it like that and then marked wherever it stops. So here I'm done sectioning. So this is B. Like I said, I cut plain papers B and A. So my fabric is crepe, and I'm using 4 yards of crepe right here. So this crepe is actually a thick crepe, but I will encourage you to use a light crepe if you are making use of crepe. But the best fabric for this tutorial is silk. If you can get silk, chiffon, or polyester, okay? These fabrics are light and can make this pleating come out very beautifully well. So right now, I've already added my seam allowance of 1/2 inch all around. So I cut 2 pieces of it. Of course, you are going to cut 2 pieces for the back pattern. So now, the back pattern is 2 pieces, and I'm going to set it aside. So I set it aside, and then this is my A. So here is A. Like I said, I cut out another paper. So A and B, you have to make 2 pieces like this and section them accordingly. So here I am going to start pleating the paper. So I'll just use B to show you how to go about the pleating of the paper. So we are going to pleat all the lines. You can see how I'm folding it. So this folding pattern is just exactly the pattern children use when making their fan, the children fan. Okay, so if you had made a children fan with paper, you will understand what I'm talking about. So but now I'm going to show you the easiest way to make this pleating on the paper. So we'll just move ahead to a table that has a sharp edge. So that will help you to create it. So I go over to a table that have a sharp edge. So I actually slowed down on this part because I really want you to understand how I'm making this fold. So I will use the sharp edge of this table, and I'm going to pleat in the lines. So if I pleat in each line, then I'm going to pick up that line and kiss it to the other line. I believe you are seeing what I'm doing. So on that, after pleating in, I'll use the edge of the paper and fold in and the next line. So all the lines has to be folded with the edge of the table. Then you now kiss in that line to match up with the other line. I believe you understand. So just watch very closely. You can actually zoom this part on your camera to get this appropriately. So this is what I kept doing. I used the edge of the pepper and then I kiss it to the other line, the edge of the table, sorry, kiss it to the next line. After kissing it to the next line like this, just like children hand fan, pepper hand fan, you know how it's done. So after that, I'll come over to that same line. So all the lines has to pass through the edge of the pepper. That is the technique. All the lines is going to pass through the edge of the pepper. So each one that passes, you kiss it to the next line. So I just took my time to make sure I show you how to pleat this pepper. Although I've already made a tutorial on how to make a skirt, a homemade skirt piece, you can also click on the link on the description box below to see how I made this line. So it's just the same method. So after kissing it to that line, I went to the next line like that, and I continue to use the edge of the table. Then I keep kissing it to the next line after I'm done using the edge of the pepper for each line. So this is what I kept doing, but I just decided to show the whole of it, so you see exactly what I did from the beginning to the end. So actually a craft paper is better. So if you notice, you can see my cardboard paper is somehow tearing off, but I later patched it with my seal tape anyway. So I make sure each line keeps passing on the edge of that table. So the edge of the table will make it very easy for you to have that kissing, okay, that pleat. So once I get the pleat, I kiss it to the next line and pass it to the edge of the pepper and kiss it to the next line. From bottom to the top, I kept repeating the same process all the way like that until I got to the waistline. So I kept repeating the same thing like that, passing it to the edge of the table and kissing it to the next line. So make sure all the lines, don't skip any line, make sure all the lines pass through this parts, okay? So all the lines has to pass through the edge of the pepper, and once it passes, you kiss it to the next line, okay? You bring it closer, kiss it to the next line and pass it on the edge of the pepper on the table again. You pass the line, the next line, and continue to kiss it like that. So looking at this, you might feel is a very big work. Yes, of course, it's a very big work, but as a fashion designer, you are supposed to be creative, you are supposed to be patient, you are supposed to be hardworking. So if you actually want to make a homemade pleated trouser that will come out very well like this, just go ahead and go through this process with your craft paper. It actually worth it. Although we also have some already pleated fabric, you can still make use of the already pleated fabric, but they are actually very, very expensive anyway. So I've gradually come to the end of the pleating of this. So this is A, I'm pleating right now. So the same thing I did to A, that is what I'm going to do to B too. So once I got to the end of my pleating, this is the end of it right now. So I begin to bring in this pepper together like children hand fan. So of course you know how to go about hand fans. So I brought them together. I make sure I bring everything together. So if you bring it together, it will make it have the shape of that plate before we begin to bake. So I brought it closer and closer and closer. As you can see, I brought it closer. So I make sure I bring everything as close as possible. And here you can see That is exactly what I'm trying to arrange. I make sure I pick all the points, all the lines, so they will be able to come as much closer as I want. So here I pleated A and B and I brought them closer like children hand fan. So now the mold is ready. I call this a mold. So I'm going to open up my mold right now and I'm going to place that back pattern we cut on fabric. So you are going to place it to take the shape of this mold. So make sure you spread it. This time around you are going to spread it again. Spread it very, very well and make sure it lays right on the mold. So but before you do that, you make sure you cut out 2 inches. I cut out 2 inches. The reason is because the mold is supposed to be longer than the fabric. So I now reduced my fabric at 2 inches. It needs to be longer. The mold has to be longer. So now I begin to place my pattern on top of the mold. You can see the down piece of it. You can see how it is. So you can see the 2 inches length. So that is the actual way to achieve a good pleat. So I placed the B on top of it. The A will be on the down and the B will be on top of it to cover it, because we are going to take this right to the oven. So you make sure everything matches accordingly. All the sections for A and the sections for B has to be the same. Then you go to the sides and secure them with your pin. You have to secure with your pin on the side, including the fabric, so the fabric does not shift while we are placing the mold. So I begin to pin and pin and pin. As you can see, I make sure I pin appropriately. So this pinning process is very important. So I went to the other side and I begin to pin and pin too. So you can see all the sections are aligning accordingly. So I begin to pin the center front. So you can see my seam allowances are out there, but that is not a problem. That is the seam allowance. It's not supposed to be in the mold. So I begin to pin and pin like this. And after pinning, we will now start to pick the section. So you are going to pick it like children hand fan once again, this time around including the fabric. So I place the 2 fabric, don't separate them. The 2 pieces of the back trouser piece, please don't separate them. Just go ahead and bake them together. So I used my clip to hold it. So if you have enough clip, just use your clip and hold them, but I don't have enough clip, so I just use what I got. So this is my copper wire. You place your copper wire below. So the copper wire is going to serve as a binder for us. So I'm going to start from the lower part to bind. So once you make sure the sections are together, including the fabric, you place your copper wire below and tie them together. So being together like this, when you bake, is going to give a good result. So now I will go ahead and start binding them. I'm going to bind from down to the upper piece. So make sure you bind them very well. Okay, so make sure you bind them very, very well. Make sure the lines are well arranged. So you can see how I'm arranging the sections. So you have to actually take your time to arrange the section. So this cardboard paper is actually very soft, but if you're working with a craft paper, is harder, okay, and firmer. Let me use the word firmer. So it will make your work a whole lot easier. So if you can get it from a craft shop, from a printing shop anyway, I think it will make this work easier for us. But this is tutorial. I don't have a craft paper to show this, so I use the cardboard paper. But if you cannot get a craft paper, like I said, you can just use your cardboard paper. But at the end of this, you are going to throw it away because it will not serve another purpose for you. So I kept binding like that. If you look at this trouser, it's actually long. It's actually long. So if it's long like this, just make sure you bind them very well. So you can see I'm at the upper part, which is the waist part of it right now. So I try to put that upper part because that upper part sectioning is very, very small. So it might be a little bit difficult to section, but just try your best to ensure you section it so you have your pleat roll from the waist to the hem line. So now I'm going to bind the upper piece, as you can see. So after binding it, this is what we got. So it's actually very long. So the oven I'm going to use is not as long as this. So I'm going to bend it from the upper part this way, okay? Then I'm going to cover this with my foil. I'm covering it with foil to avoid burning, okay? So if you don't want it to burn, just go ahead and use your foil and cover the mold. But I don't have enough foil right here, so I use the what I got to cover, although it did not actually cover all my mold. But please, I will encourage you to cover all the mold, so by the time we start baking it is not going to burn your fabric at all. And you can also bake as long as you want. So right here I have a bowl of water below my grid on my oven. So here I'm going to turn it to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Fahrenheit or Celsius, but it has to be at 180. At least you have seen the knob. So you just turn your gas cooker on and place your mold inside. So make sure you cover everywhere with your foil. So like I said, I don't have enough foil, so you can see that part is open and it might have the tendency of burning. So now I'm going to bake at 30 minutes, okay? So I'm going to bake, although I baked the first one at 20 minutes, but the second one I baked at 40 minutes. So you can bake, if you have the foil, okay, you can bake as long as you wish. So here I brought it out and placed it outside to cool. So make sure it cools very, very well before you open it. So I'm opening it right now because I have it cooled right away. So you can see the part I folded will be somehow disarranged, but I'll show you what to do at the end of the day. So I take off my copper wire right now, and then I'm going to take off the mold. So after taking it off here, so we are going to unveil our mold right now. So make sure you take off your pins right now. So I took off all my pins and this is what I got. La la, you can see how beautiful this looks, but then you can see the part we folded is disarranged. So because I don't have a long oven, okay, for the factory you can they have long oven, but since we are making a homemade, we can just manage this and go in and pleat in this part. So what I'm going to do now, this part that is disarranged, I'm going over to iron it out. Over to the ironing table, and those parts I will just pleat them one after the other with my steam iron. So I'll just make sure I iron only on the pleats. So please don't iron everything so you don't scatter the whole pleats. So just keep pleating it in, that part that is disarranged, and make sure you iron it, the rumpled part, and bring it back to a perfect pleat. So if you look very well right there, you can see how I'm pleating it. So I'm just taking my time. This is because we don't have a long oven. But if it is in the factory, they have an industrial long oven that will be able to carry this without bending it. But since we are making a homemade pleat, just go ahead and do what I'm doing right here, okay? Of course, the part we bent is at the upper piece, so it won't even be that noticeable. So I pick the pleat as much as I can and just straighten that part, okay? So here I'm done. So I bring back the paper I told you to save and bring the pattern that we used before. So don't mind the lines on this pattern. I was using this to test run how the lines of our mold is going to look like. So this is the part I told you to save. So I have to gum it together back. So we gum it together because we want to cut out the front pattern. So I'll make sure I match them exactly the way it was before we cut it out. So I use my sellotape to make it come back the way it is before we cut. So after putting it together, the next thing we are going to do is to cut out the front. So I'm highlighting the part that is the front because we have so many lines right here. So I'm going to cut through the center front right now and then cut through the first line we made before we started adding allowances. So I'm going to straighten, because of the slash and spread, you can see that the waistline there is somehow curvy. So I straighten it and I'm going to cut through the line. So what I'm doing now is to cut the front piece. I believe you understand. So I'm cutting those lines we made initially before we added extensions for the back pattern. So you have to cut it out, cut through the center front crouch line and cut through the front. So here the front pattern is ready right now. So we'll be using this front pattern right now to cut out our fabric. So I'm using the remaining 2 yards of my crepe and I placed it on top of it. I added 1/2 inch seam allowance all around and then I'll proceed to the cutting. So you can see how I cut it. So I didn't add any seam allowance on the down part because the mold is already long and of course we are going to cut it out. So now this is our front pattern. Okay, so I added 1/2 inch on the side, on the waist, on the crouch, and I did not add on the hem. So the next thing we want to do now, I've taken off the front pattern piece and I'm going to cut out 2 inches. Remember I told you the mold is supposed to be longer than the fabric. So since we use the same mold pattern to cut this, we are reducing it by 2 inches. So now we are using the same mold we used for the back. So I'm going to repeat using the same mold. Although the crouch part will be longer, but that does not affect anything. So since it's on the crouch part, it does not affect anything at all. So just use the same mold. Don't bother yourself. Just go back to that mold that we used for the back pattern. The A and B mold. So the A and B mold, you can see me opening up the mold. Right now, I will place that front pattern I cut out inside it. So you just place it inside it right there and make sure you straighten everything. So I straighten everything as you can see. And once I'm done straightening it, I place it on A and I'm on B. I'm going to place A on top of it or any which way. So the two molds have to overlap each other. Okay, you have to place it on top of each other just to protect it. So I'm doing exactly what I did for the front piece. So I just want to show this part. Of course, we have done it before, but I'm showing it for the front piece because I really want you to see that I use the same mold. So there will be not be any need to start drafting another mold, okay, when this mold can serve the purpose. So I just go ahead and secure the sides with my pin as usual. So repeating what I did last time, that is what I'm doing here. So I'll just go ahead and run through the process very fast. So you can see the excess we have because that is the part I told you to save that we attached. So there will be an excess at the front, which is the crouch line, but it does not affect anything at all. So I secure it with my pin right now, and I'm going to start bringing them together like I did before. So I'll just go ahead and pin, bring them together like that. So I'm still going through the process of pinning. So I bring it together and create the mold. So here I'm just repeating exactly what I did for the first pattern, okay, the first mold, which is the back piece. So I just go ahead and repeat the process once again, tying it with my copper wire. Then later I have to bend it because my oven is small. So I'm going to take it to the oven right now after folding it with my foil. So I just repeated same process. I just brought it out of the oven right now. It's virtually the same thing I did in the back pattern piece, so I don't want to repeat that part. So I moved ahead to open it up. So I baked this for 40 minutes. I baked it longer. If you look at it, you can see there are some burns on the parts I did not cover with foil. So please ensure you cover everything with foil. You can bake up to 40 minutes. In fact, baking longer, that from my experience, is better. Because if you bake longer, it makes the pleats, it retains the pleats. So you can see I have some burn. That's because I did not cover it with foil. Please make sure you cover with foil. You can see the down part is looking nice. So the part that we folded, because we don't have a long oven, I'll still go over to the ironing table and repeat the same process I showed you for the back. So this is the part that was baked longer, and this one was not baked longer. So the one that is baked longer, you can see it is better. So I'm sewing the center front and center back. So I've stitched them together, as you can see, and I'm going to merge the front and back trouser. So we'll be able to go and stitch the side of this trouser. So here I'm done stitching this side, and the other side I left 10 inches allowance for my zipper. So we are going to sew our zip on that side. So now I'm going to match the crouch line. Just open up the seam lines on the crouch and stitch from that point to the end. So I'm done stitching, and here I'm going to sew my band. So my band width is 4 inches, and I folded half an inch, and I hasted my band too. So I'm going to, the length of this band, I made it as long as, okay, I made it very longer than the waistline. You will see the reason I did that. So now I'm going to place the band right side to the wrong side of the trouser. So you can see the excess I told you I added to this trouser. So now I'm going to top stitch. So I'll go ahead and top stitch at half an inch all around. So after top stitching, I gave it a good press. So you can see that excess. So you just blend it into the waistline, okay? Just cut it out into the waistline. That's why I made that excess, so we can cut it out very well. So after cutting out, the next is to attach my zipper. So I'm using an invisible zip. So I'll go ahead and sew my invisible zip to this trouser. So after sewing my invisible zip on the side, this is what I got. So you can see our trouser is looking very beautiful and wonderful. So that is how we'll come to the end of this tutorial. I believe this class was helpful to you. So if this class is helpful to you, I would like to have your comment on the comment section. Turn on your notification bell to receive more videos like this. Thanks for watching. Bye.